The country's top 3-year-olds go after a $1 million bonus in the final jewel of the Triple Crown. It's the Belmont Stakes live Saturday on ABC's Wide World of Sports.
Kids volunteering to help others as a requirement for graduation. Sounds great. So why are people trying to stop it? Watch Peter Jennings on ABC's World News Tonight next week.
And we're back with Max Cleland, Leon Wieseltier, and Clarence Page. Max, I know you wanted to respond to what Leon said a moment ago.
Yeah, I think that we're taking our eye off the ball here. When we see the flyover tomorrow or this weekend or in any of the parade we're seeing, it's not the weaponry that we're celebrating, it's not the tanks, it's not the trucks, it's not the aircraft or the choppers or whatever. It's really the people who make that go. What was it General Schwarzkopf said? It doesn't take courage to order men and women into combat. It takes courage to go into combat. That's what we're celebrating, is the courage of young Americans to defend this country when they're called upon. Now, I went through a different era. I came back to what we Vietnam veterans call the second wound. And this nation doesn't need to inflict that on this group of young Americans here. We need to make sure that we don't inflict a second wound, and I think that that goes to the heart of why these kind of parades are justified.
But Ted, yeah, go ahead, Liam.
I don't think we're hardly in any danger of inflicting a second wound. I'm not worried about militarism in this country, and I think that if the cultural prestige of the military in this country becomes greater in the 90s than when it was in the 70s or the 80s, then that is well-deserved and a good thing. I mean, my view is that it's a little bit embarrassing, the American obsession with how good we feel about ourselves. I think that after the war in Vietnam, we felt worse about ourselves than we deserve to. And I think after the war in the Gulf, we're feeling better about ourselves than we deserve to. There's something a little bit unstable about this.
To whom do we owe that sense of good feeling? Young men and women who did their duty when they were called upon to do it.
Nobody is denying that.
I think it is one of the highest functions of citizenship and public service to lay your life on the line. That's what I think we're celebrating. We're not celebrating particularly the weaponry involved, or even the policy involved, or even the victory. It's the fact that we still have people involved in this country, young people especially, willing to go that far.
Let me get Clarence Page in here.
I think if I may offer a view that really agrees with both of the other gentlemen here, and that is, I mentioned earlier the Vietnam Vet Appreciation Parade in Chicago and other cities around the country, belatedly but very sincerely back in the 80s. Those were no-frills appreciation for the troops themselves. There were not necessarily the big flyovers, the tanks, the Patriot missiles, the tremendous amount of military hardware rolling out. I think this is what Leon's talking about, this celebration of the hardware. When I see these flyovers, I think about how many high schools or daycare centers could be bought with all that money that's being expended out there. And this is where the question of proportionality comes in. Let's bring it back down to the troops. Let's not make the celebration of war.
I disagree. It was MacArthur who said that the soldier above all prays for peace because he must bear the deepest wounds and scars of war. Now, that's what we are honoring as well, not just those who returned, but those who didn't return. And over 200 members of those families are going to be in Washington tomorrow. They're going to feel better, hopefully, as this nation wraps our arms around them and says, thank you. You know, the Vietnam veterans had to put on their own parades. I can remember that. There wasn't anybody out there willing to pick up the tab. The Pentagon wasn't interested in doing it. The private sector was not interested in raising millions of dollars. The Vietnam veterans in the early 80s, if you recall, had to raise money themselves for their own monument and put on their own parades.
You know, this
time around, I think we're doing better.
I recall very well, and I have to ask, why is the Pentagon and the defense industry so enthusiastic about this parade? And I think a lot of it has to do with bottom-line dollars.
I also have to say that it's a very odd, this is a very odd context in which to cite MacArthur approvingly. The day that Harry Truman fired MacArthur, in my view, was one of the great days in modern American history. It established very, very clearly what the limits of the authority of the military are and what the nature of this political system is. And this is something that I'm sure the troops are the first to acknowledge.
All right, let's talk about proportionality. What's the total cost of this exercise in Washington? About 1.5 helicopters. You know, you talk
Or how many high schools? How many high schools?
All right,
my understanding is that the Pentagon was going to use this money anyway on some other maneuver. I think this is one of the better maneuvers that we've seen.
All right, before we get into too much cost analysis here, we're going to take a break, but when we come back, what I'd like to do is have you focus on what could be seen as sort of a sanitizing of this war. There's a very fancy booklet that has just come out that the organizers of this parade have put out. There is not one picture of any dead person, and there are a couple of very clean, tidy little pictures of a couple of wounded. It makes war look like an awful lot of fun. I'd like to have you just comment on that when we conclude our discussion after this.
Father's Day, and dads want Dockers, Levi's Dockers, and they're all on sale at Sears. Shirts, pants, shorts. These Docker twills are just $24.99, Sears' lowest price of the year. Dads want Dockers, and they're all on sale at Sears.
We are entering a whole new era, the decade of positive change. Around the world, organizations have realized that you cannot intimidate human beings into productivity. The key is to let people do what they do best, whatever way works best for them. At the same time, fundamental principles of mass production give ordinary people access to powerful technology. That which was affordable to the few becomes available to the many. Mass production becomes mass productivity. The Industrial Revolution meets the Age of Enlightenment. The walls have come down. Opportunity has gone up. And your only limits will be the size of your ideas and the degree of your dedication. People, this is an exciting time to be alive.
Water helps your garden grow. Want to know any more? Ask Ace.
This Ace 60-foot garden hose is just $8.77, and Ace 5-star acrylic latex house paint is only $8.97 a gallon.
Hey, Ace is the place for me. Let me tell you.
Question: what's 93 times 2? Answer: one great Mazda. When you think Link, think John Link Mazda for a stylish new 91 Protege, just $93.93. What's 78 times 2? You guessed it, one great Mazda truck. At John Link Mazda, you can pick up a tough SE5 pickup for just $78.78. It all adds up to a great deal at John Link Mazda, where I-205 meets McLaughlin in Oregon City.
And we're back once again with Max Cleland and Leon Wieseltier and Clarence Page. Max, you better than any of us here can appreciate the difference between the feelings that you get, the sort of pumping adrenaline that goes by, the surge of excitement when you see planes flying overhead, tanks rolling by, troops marching in a parade setting, and when you see those same instruments of war when you are yourself out in the battlefield. The question I'm raising is, have we made war seem like too much fun in these last few weeks?
I think Hollywood has as much to do with that as anything else. There were 500 movies after World War II where the good guys, namely us, we always won. A war is not like that. War is, as Sherman said, war is hell. The good news is that hell was cut very short in the deserts of Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and Iraq by, I think, great generalship and good planning. And for those people who were involved in that, we need to thank them for going out of their way, volunteering, and doing a great job. Now, I think that if you want to carry this parade thing and the flag-waving thing really to its ultimate conclusion, then immediately after the parade, a lot of people should go out and visit some Veterans Administration hospitals and make sure that the people in those hospitals in other wars also feel a sense of gratitude.
All right, a quick closing comment from Clarence Page and then Leon Wieseltier. Clarence?
Well, I think what Generals Lee and Sherman were talking about was the kind of adventures and misadventures you can get into when you see a war too well packaged. This war was very well packaged by a Pentagon and a White House that have really learned a lot about public relations, but it had a very ambiguous ending, and I'm concerned about the ambiguous messages in its aftermath and trying to avoid future wars for our children.
Leon, about 30 seconds.
Ted, we killed an extraordinary number of people in this war. That doesn't mean that the war was wrong, but it means that we also have blood on our hands. And I think that the lack of interest on the part of the administration and of other sectors in American society in the consequences of our action. I think there's something a little bit indecent about this.
Gentlemen, I thank you all very much. Max Cleland, Leon Wieseltier, Clarence Page. Of one thing we can be sure, many hundreds of thousands of people tomorrow will enjoy the hell out of that parade. Finally, this program note, the Soviet Union is asking the United States for record amounts of financial aid to support its collapsing economy. And that will be the topic on Sundays This Week with David Brinkley. That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
This has been ABC News.